call from OPB. They wanted reaction to the tariff thing. I was like, all right.
Okay, and I'm just for you. This is my bad side.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't trim my beard properly on that.
Perfect. I'm in my gym clothes. And in your beard.
Life is good.
We are quite the pair.
I decided to wear a shirt with my own face on it today.
I know. I noticed that.
It's the first time I've ever worn it. And as I was on the train, I'm like, oh, this is kind of obnoxious.
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot.
It's kind of rude. People think I'm just like obsessed with my own face. What am I doing here? Hi, it's recording, just so you know, officially.
Okay.
I thank you for inviting me in and for this coffee.
You're so welcome.
Which I'm drinking from Hacea.
Yes.
You didn't tell me where it's from.
Yeah, so that is a Guatemala Pacamara wash process from Finca El Mirador. Yeah.
Cool.
It's going to be the next edition on our Roast Approach blog to help roasters gain some perspective on how to roast it.
Well, that's part of the reason I'm here is because I'll do some pandering. I find you to be very intelligent, both in coffee and out, and someone I enjoy hearing your opinions on. And so I read those Roast Approach blogs, even though I don't roast, which I think is kind of just knowledge that goes in and out. The only time that I'm going to ask you to do this today, the only time to look at the camera, could you tell everyone who you are, where you work, and what your job is there?
My name's Emily Smith, and I work with Hacea Coffee Source. I am technically, I think my title is relationship representative.
I saw that. That's like one of my first questions. What does that mean?
We're a really small team, and everybody does a little bit of everything. So my little bit of everything is sales, education, especially the online educational content that we create. Very
cool. Yeah, Hacea has been supporting this show, and I just consider those guys, the Hales brothers, friends as well as you. Hopefully you feel the same. I don't want to assume. We're here at the Buckman Coffee Factory in Portland, Oregon.
Yep.
Hacea is based in Anaheim.
Yes.
A coastal empire is building. We have Hacea Coffee behind us. So we should get started with the Coffee People podcast.
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. Who are you, Emily?
Well, I'm Emily. I've been in coffee for I think 14 years, if you don't count like a stint of coffee time, barista time I did when I was in college. But for the last 14 years. And I work with been with Hacea Coffee Source for 2 years, going on the third year now. I've been in coffee, green coffee side with trading and sales for the last 7-8 years. And before that, I did some roasting. I did some educational work, did some retail side, a little bit of retail management and quality control. I did quality control for a few years in there as well. So I often tell people it's pretty hard to find something in coffee that I haven't done, but if you find it, let me know so I can put it on the list.
You can add it to your resume?
So I can add it in.
If you look at your resume, which I did in preparation for this, one of the first things on there is that you were actually in a different career before this.
Yeah.
For a couple of years, at least. I'm assuming you came out of college and started something. What was that? What was the process like of getting started in the world in your career and then deciding to leave it for coffee?
Yeah. So I, during college and then right outside of college, I worked in human services and mental health. I worked, I like to joke that I've worked with the same population of people
sure.
For the last 20 years. So I worked at a facility that worked with teenagers who were in mental health crisis. And then I went into case management for for kids who were in state custody, especially worked with teenagers. That's kind of my niche. Got to a point where working with them, I realized that, so working in human services and being a case manager, oftentimes it meant that nobody was happy to see me. Like if I'm,
Sure.
if you're seeing me, something has gone very wrong. If I'm knocking at your door, people are not happy to open it, right?
Sure.
So that was my life for many years. And I got to a point where I was like, I just want to be somewhere where people are happy to see me. So when I worked as a case manager, I used to, like, in between stopping at clients' houses and doing inspections and checking in on people, I would go to Starbucks, and I just wanted that moment where the barista smiles at you and it's like, seems happy that you've walked through the door.
Yeah. You've given them a moment.
Yeah. For me, like, that was so important to me. And so I had a little bit of knowledge of coffee. My husband and I went to a coffee farm in Costa Rica on our honeymoon. And so I kind of had this very romantic idea of like what coffee was like. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to make a career switch, I want to get into coffee. I want to work with farmers. I want to work with all of this cool stuff that is involved with coffee. I had no idea how to do that. So I quit my job and went and worked for Starbucks.
Sure.
I applied to my local Starbucks and got a job as a shift leader. Kind of like this mid-level, like kind of running things in the store. And in my interview, they asked me, why do you want to work for Starbucks? And I was like, I want to work with coffee farmers. And they're like, okay, crazy. Like, come on aboard.
Yep.
But I had that drive of that was always my end goal of where I wanted to be, was working with the people who were producing coffee. I just had no idea how to do that. So went and worked, joined the team at Starbucks and started my coffee career there.
So then, because you've mentioned all the different things that you've done and all the different roles you've had, how did that grow from first day on the job, wide-eyed barista shift leader to actually getting to that point where you felt comfortable or you had the opportunity to work with a farm?
It was a lot of work.
I would think like there's a risk of getting trapped in that.
Yeah. So I started with the retail side of Starbucks, and which I think is where so many really amazing coffee professionals start. So I started there, worked my way up into the retail side, and was an assistant store manager when I started playing around with roasting coffee. My friend, who was also a store manager, him and I went half and half in on a Be More roaster, and we were like have these little roasting sessions. Nice. And we were roasting dark, oily beans at home, and so good. And then I started going to some specialty shops and started hanging out over with the guys at Dapper and Wise in Hillsborough when they first opened their tasting room. And I would just go and hang out and sit there. And then they invited me to a couple of cuppings. And so then I went and cupped coffee with them and brought my own coffee that I had roasted. So that kind of like had started everything. And as that was all going on, I'm still assistant manager with Starbucks. I had a meeting with our district manager. And, he was like, Emily, what do you want to do? You're so passionate about coffee. What do you want to do? And I told him, I have this idea that in the future, Starbucks is going to open a store that's roasting coffee, and they're embracing specialty coffee. And it's going to be this place that, brings it all together, brings together the whole experience of specialty coffee, but in a very Starbucks sort of way. Mm-hmm. And within a month of us having that sit down meeting, Starbucks had announced that they were recruiting for the Reserve Roastery that they were going to open up in Seattle. So he put my name in as a management candidate for the Reserve Roastery. And I got picked to go up and be part of the opening team.
I've never been a believer in manifestation, but that feels very manifesting.
Yeah.
Do you also carry a crystal at all times? Like, what is happening here?
A couple of crystal balls.
Okay, yeah.
So that was a really wild adventure. The other thing that I did when I was at Starbucks, I figured out like the naming convention of the emails, and I found out that there was this person at Starbucks who was, because I was also getting into watching all of the barista competitions and the coffee competitions. And I found out there's this person at Starbucks who was really good at cup tasting. Her name's Amanda Juris. And I figured out what her email was from this naming convention. And so I was sending emails out into the ether, like never having met her. And she responded back. And I took a trip up to Seattle and really did like my first real cupping with the quality control team at the corporate office in Seattle with, I think we had probably 500 cups of Brazilian coffee, all Brazilian coffee. And that was like my first like real big.
Did that set like a standard? Then like the next time you did it, like that, to me, like I'm thinking about like the most professional, impressive cuppings I've done, not to that scale.
It just gave me such a different perspective of what coffee was. And when you're cupping 500 cups of Brazil coffee that should all have the same spec, there's a wide variety of flavors that come up on that table. Sure. And it was just such an incredible experience. But it was like a little bit of that beginning hustle.
I don't want to assume you've lost this. How long did that, I want to work with coffee farmers, Emily, last? Or how long did you kind of adjust into? Because like to me, if I start cupping and it's like 500, if it's 50, I can get cynical real quick or maybe judgmental real quick. How long did you keep that motivation all the way through? Did it stay strong, or was there a period where you were like, oh, this is intense?
So there are definitely moments in this industry where I feel very salty and jaded about things that happen. But that particular, continued drive, I would say that that's one of my special talents, is being able to maintain that. Yeah. When the Reserve Roastery opened in Seattle, I was on what they call the experience bar doing siphons, brewing siphons for people. And I would brew one of these coffee experiences after another over and over and over again. And at some point in time, somebody from I think like the Seattle Guardian or like one of the local newspapers had sat down, and they actually wrote about my unending enthusiasm, because I guess they like hung out and just watched me do this for hours on end, like repeating over and over and over again. They wrote about my unending enthusiasm for talking about coffee. And I think I haven't lost that. I definitely get salty and jaded, and there are moments where I'm like, this industry is definitely something. But my overall passion for it, and passion for the producers and the people who are really like the people who are in the industry, that I definitely haven't lost at all.
On that note, do you remember when coffee came into your life, or do you have a memory of coffee from when you were
I do.
Before like this was like your life and your career, but what's that
My
story?
First experience with coffee was in college. It was my freshman year. I was down in Southern California at a small school called Azusa Pacific University. Mm-hmm. And Azusa Pacific University had a Starbucks that was like right next door. And this was the time when there were just not coffee shops anywhere. Like we had a Starbucks next door, and then the next closest one was in Pasadena. That was it. Right. So like 30 minutes until the next Starbucks. During finals week, that Starbucks next to the campus would stay open 24 hours for all the students. And so I remember I went with my roommates and we went to the Starbucks. I had never had coffee before, but I really needed caffeine because I was like all night studying. And so I went up to the counter and I said, can I get a hot chocolate, but can you put like a shot of coffee in it? And the barista looked at me like dead in the face and was like, so a mocha? And I was like, is that a mocha? Like, that's so cool. I would like one of those. And that was my first time having
I like
coffee.
it. Yeah. I think that was my mistake because I wasn't studying in college, so I never drank any coffee.
Yeah.
I was mostly drinking downers, I think is probably more appropriate.
Yeah. No, coffee was all about it after that moment.
Right in. So you get into that point and you're on the front lines, so to speak. You're serving, you're talking about coffee, you're learning more. You're in a place that has the resources to help you learn more to some extent. When does that transition into actually working on this side of things a little bit more, or that first kind of like back to the farm experience, so to speak?
Yeah. So it was tough. It was a very, very difficult time. I was in that position doing the retail management side, but also exposed to people who are roasting coffee all the time and talking about coffee all the time. And I got to hang out with the people who were on the global coffee team. And they would come and like actually work a shift with us. So I had that exposure and I realized like I really want to jump out of this retail side and get into the coffee side. And so I tried to get in on the roasting side and I got like every door shut in my face. So I found a coffee roaster that was nearby and I rented out time on his machine and I bought green coffee off the internet and would take it in and roast coffee. And like, just like kind of at cost, sell it to my like friends and family to try to recoup. I wasn't trying to start a coffee business or anything like that. I just wanted to get experience roasting coffee. And then I started looking for opportunities. I had some cupping experience. I had a little bit of quality control experience. I had that experience tasting every defect under the sun on those like Brazilian tables. So I had that and I found a job that was a job posting for a quality control position. And I knew that my resume in no way was going to impress somebody who was hiring for this position. Like I really want it. There's no way that I'm qualified for it. So I took a bag of coffee that I had roasted and I printed my resume on a label and attached it to the bag of coffee.
Nice.
And I brought that in with the hard paper copy of my resume. And I, applied to the job and I got a call and they were so impressed that I would do that. It was enough to get their attention. And I ended up getting the job. And so for 3 years, I worked as a quality control, specializing in the sensory quality of and green coffee quality for a large roasting operation. Is a white label kind of facility. And we did about 15 million pounds of coffee a year. And I did all of the green coffee quality control and then all of the sensory quality control for roasted coffee. They gave me the freedom to really grow and to learn. I had a lab. I mean, it was awesome. It was like such a time of growth, and that really set me up, I think, for all of the things that would come.
Sure. I want to take just a quick break and double check that this is working.
Sure.
If that's all right.
Yeah.
Sliding into your screen is not just any coffee bag. It's a Roastar coffee bag. Don't need thousands, Personalize just 25 in Roastar's Design Lab. No design experience needed. Choose a pattern, add your logo and text, or create something memorable with AI. Being made in the Midwest, you can expect it on your doorstep in no time. Now that was smooth.
And we're back. It's amazing how it's just like
Yeah.
seamless. When someone sees it, they'll be like, nothing ever changed.
Nothing
except
happened.
he looks different now. So you have this brilliant period of growth, in part because you were able to get someone's attention.
Mhm.
I wonder a lot about that little digression in our current era of trying to find a job for people where all of our resumes are filtered and having those creative ideas
Yeah.
may not get through anymore, which I think is unfortunate because you learn more about people that way. But where did you spend? I think you said 3 years or so.
Mhm.
Where does that? How do you get from there to where you are now, where you have this fancy office and this big space to work in, and all this coffee that you're in charge of?
So after doing the quality control, I did a little bit of work with a company called Roastar Tools, where I was helping to bring some of those productivity and efficiency models that I saw in the really large roasting operations, helping to bring that to smaller roasters and helping them to find ways to build efficiencies within their programs. And I was also like, the whole thing was hustle, hustle, hustle. I was working easily 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. So when I wasn't working full time at those jobs, I was on the weekends. I came here to the Buckman Coffee Factory. I was working on the weekends, helping to do roaster education and get roasters set up on the machines and supervise the roasting floor. I did some roast education trainings with Mike Nelson. Him and I co-taught like introduction to roasting classes together. And then I ended up getting a head roaster position with a company called World Cup Coffee that does kind of like office coffee service in the Portland area. So I was buying coffee and roasting coffee. And from there, that was the spot where I left that position and got into working as a green coffee trader.
Sure. It's kind of like the opposite side of the coin, right? The forward-facing customer.
Yes.
It's a different customer. You're still working with customers, but it's on the backside of things. Through all of this, and we'll get to the ending at some point, I'm sure, but I know that you're a mom.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find time to have a family during this period, and how do you find that balance? I think that I always think about that. I don't have kids of my own, and I think about how crazy just the time, the schedule, the amount of time that you devote to these things. How did that impact you, or how did that come about?
It's really hard. When we moved up to Seattle to do the job for me to take the job at the Reserve Roastery, I had a 6-month-old baby and a 3-year-old. And I guess she was 4. So 6 months and 4 years old. And then when the roastery finally opened, I was working like 70 hours a week. And I would work, and then I'd come home I'd get home at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, sleep for 2 hours, and then be up with babies and getting everybody to daycare and then going back to work. Like, that was my every single day. And it was terrible. I got the sickest I've ever been in my life. Mm-hmm. And it was so hard. I have a really, really supportive partner who just gave me unending support through all of this. I think he also saw it as us investing in
your future,
in the future, and building the career. But I will say, I think moms have it really, really hard in this industry. I think overall women have it really, really hard in this industry. One of the things, as a mom, like, I couldn't take any shifts that people were offering me. And they're like, oh, well, if you want to get into roasting, then you need to, get some experience. I'm like, well, I can't get experience unless you pay me to do these things, because it's, I don't have all of this time. And I saw people who didn't have families who were able to take huge opportunities that presented themselves, that needed extra flexibility in their schedule. And, I think that was also a time when we saw in these coffee competitions, it was very male dominated, and almost you didn't see moms. You didn't see moms in very much in the industry, and even women as in prominent roles also. Like it was tough.
Do you think that's changing or has changed over the years since the beginning of that?
I think it's definitely changed. One of the things that I remember really specifically is in, I think it was like 2016, the SCA did a career survey with like the Roasters Guild, and they looked at how many roasters were female. And at that time, it was either 2016 or 2014, it was 16%, 16 were female. Like that was what I was trying to break into. I think that, obviously today, like I talk to women roasters all the time. And I think a lot of women who roast today owe a lot of credit to some people who really broke the glass and created the path for them. So I think it's definitely better today, but I still think that we see a lack of women in decision-making roles across the industry. I think that their value is underrepresented. So I see that a lot. I'm really happy when I talk to a female in the coffee industry who doesn't recognize those struggles. Like I'm happy if they cannot empathize with things that
Sure.
that I went through and things that I saw people around me going through. I'm so excited when that doesn't resonate with them, but I still see it all around. So we definitely have a long way to go, especially with establishing career paths. I think we see a lot of women in the coffee industry who are in the barista spot, who are working in the retail side, and they don't have a real clear career progression of where they're going to go, or things happen in their life, like that they have kids or some kind of responsibility gets added, and there's not a lot of discussion about how to get back in and keep advancing their career. And I think they get pushed out into other careers all the time. I think we lose a lot of really incredible talent in this industry because we don't nurture it and help it to grow. So
this show is on season 16.
Mm-hmm.
Something I noticed on this particular note was in the beginning, I had almost equal 50-50 male, female choice of gender identity kind of mixed in with the people I was talking to. And one of the messages that I heard a lot from the women on the show was they felt alone or they didn't feel like they had someone to role model for them, which is one of the reasons I've learned to really appreciate representation in that way. Then as you get through into some of the middle seasons, it's much more male dominated. And it was because the people that I was engaging with, there was only so many, to fit in that were available, and the being available to be interviewed part as well. And so I really tried to work to come back and say, no, we need to represent all these different aspects as much as we can. Does that inspire you to, when you see somebody out in the world, to mentor? Does that become part of your life at all? Or offer, hey, here's some advice, just how can I help?
I try to make that really a big part of who I am in this industry, is making sure that people understand that I'm open to questions. Every time I talk to a new customer who is female or identifies in that way, I always let them know, hey, I'm here for literally anything. Like if you if you have a question about another importer, call me. If you have a question about a roast, call me. If you need some kind of help in your progression, call me. Like, I want to be there to support women who are in this industry. I do think it's really isolating. I think that there are a lot of experiences that also, as women in the industry, we don't really talk about. Like, the number of times I have men who just totally disregard my opinion in conversations, or I've been at meetings where a guy has tried to explain to me what a roast curve is, and I'm like beating my head against the wall. Just like I've had a manager who told me I just need to smile more and wear more makeup, and like that would help in my leadership style. All of these things that have happened, and I know that so many other women in the industry, especially if you're roasting, I talk to so many women who, we'll talk about roast theory, and they're so smart. They're like, they know their stuff about coffee. They know their stuff about roasting. And when we're in, maybe like at an event or something, I'll be in a group with them, and there will be guys just like talking about all of this stuff. And they're pretty quiet because they've been shut down so many times and had people look at them of like, just like disregarding their experience. And they've also just like never really been validated that, yeah, you're a great roaster. Like, this isn't by accident. Like, you worked really hard. You're really smart. You study your coffee, you know your stuff, and that's why you're a great roaster. So many of them, it seems like, think that it's by accident when they roast really good coffee, by accident when they get recognized. And I think that's like across the board. I think that it's still really challenging to be a woman in this industry. And I still don't think that women are comfortable with expressing some of those challenges that they're experiencing. And there's not really a good forum for us to talk about it, right? Like, to talk about some of these interpersonal challenges that we have within the workplace, or talk about like how we're feeling represented in the industry. So I try to be a place for that in any opportunity I have. And I also try to connect women with other women who have, who might be able to kind of be that support network for them as they are growing. I was really, really fortunate to have an amazing set of women that I encountered early on in my coffee career. Back in, I want to say I think 2015, Layla Wilbur, at the time Layla Gambari, she put on an event called the Coffee Woman. And it was in Seattle. They held it at the Roy Street Cafe. And all of these women got together. There must have been 100 women coffee professionals, all from the Seattle area, Pacific Northwest. They were all there. And we had there was maybe 20 women who got up on stage and just shared like some of their experience as being a woman in the coffee industry. And a lot of those experiences, we had women who started companies in the 70s and did tech work in the 80s and were had been roasting for, through the 90s, and these times when they were really like the lone wolf, like the only one out there. And they're strong, they're fighters, like they don't take shit from anyone. And I had the opportunity to sit through and hear these stories, and it was so inspiring. And I've never lost sight of how precious that opportunity was. One of them gave this nugget of advice about applying for jobs and said, have the have the confidence of a mediocre man. And I carry that with me all the time. And in that room, I sat next to the women that I sat next to in that room who were baristas, who were just people, right, in the coffee industry. Those are women who are leading everything today. You know, I sat next to, that's where I met Jen Hurd, who's with Genuine Origin. That's like where I met Jill Killian, and just so many people who I got a mentorship out of that with Jen Roberts, who is at Atlas Coffee, and her and I used to go and sit down and talk about how things were going. All of that was so precious to me. I wish that we had more opportunities like that. I feel like there was a moment in coffee where we recognized the inequalities, and then everybody wanted to think that all of it was fixed after that. And we haven't like really gone back to addressing that. And I think the disparity has kind of widened since then.
Well, once we fix something, we get the credit, and then we don't have to do it anymore, right?
We're all done.
I mean, I laughed a little. I tried not to laugh out loud, but the confidence of a mediocre man. My wife and I talk about this sometimes where I don't want to say I chastise her, but I'm like, hey, don't apologize.
Yeah.
Like when she's talking about something, or even if we're arguing, no, like I know you know what you're talking about. Like, you're smarter than me by a mile, but you're letting me win here because I'm just confident in what I'm saying.
And I think that's like so one of the things that this person had talked about, it was regarding job applications. And she talked about how she gets, she'd post a job that's open, and she would get 10 incredibly mediocre applications from men. And one, application from a woman. And even in that, the person feels like they feel like in order to apply, they need to be overly qualified. Like, they need to meet every expectation and then some to be a candidate. And they said, go for it. And that was so important. Like, that was an event that happened before I went and applied to this
with the bag
of coffee.
For sure.
And
swing for the fence.
Yeah. Swing for the fence. Like, and I applied at points in time in my career, I have applied for so many wild, like, things that were dream jobs, like, would be so cool. But I was in my brain. I thought I was wildly underqualified for. And you would be shocked at how far I made it into these like job interviews. And it just like made me realize, like, yeah, like, go for it. Like, I'm smart. I have experience, and it's so easy to downplay what we bring into a situation, and make ourselves smaller. And I feel like that's what so many women in coffee do. And we need to embrace all of these things that we have and take up space in the industry and speak and be heard, So
I'm in my head, I'm like using the word self-deprecating as like a tool to like deflect.
Yeah.
It's something that I know that I do, but I think a lot of people do. Like, and then when you're looking at things or opportunities, and once you start saying I'm underqualified or there's no way, then you lose momentum to actually pursue it. And it's like, how do you get qualified if you don't end up getting a chance somewhere?
And then if you do get it, you feel like you've got that really strong imposter syndrome that everything was just by accident. And at some point they're going to figure out that you're not qualified. Right. And I see that so often with women in the industry. And I think that it's just they just need a mirror to help reflect like how wonderful they are and how much they're contributing and how talented they are. So I always try to be that mirror and like show back to them like how incredible what they're doing is, how much value they bring to the business that they are in, so that they can have that confidence to go in and like get those jobs that they really want to get.
Speaking of jobs that you really want to get, you work with Hacea Coffee Source. I find a lot of value in what they do as a company. I don't mean this to be a slight, but I consider them more of a boutique company. Is that fair to say? Yeah. How does the work that you're doing now, how does that differ from some of the bigger operations, or what value do you bring that you're like, this is why you should consider what we do as a value add to your business?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I feel like I
yeah,
word saladed that a little bit.
It does make sense. I think, so I'll just say, so before working for Hacea, I spent 5 years working for a very large company that had a specialty division. So I worked in the specialty division. It was an international coffee trading company. So I've had the experience doing
sorry, I did jumped a little bit ahead there. I apologize.
But I've had the experience doing large scale specialty. I've had the experience doing commercial, like small experience doing commercial, and seeing some of the different ways that those companies work and the ways that they interact within the industry. I think to every this is a very big industry. And I feel like at some point we have to pick which channel we want to be in and which segment of that industry we want to be a part of, and then dig really deep. So in that time when I worked for this really large company, that's when I got to meet Jared and his brother Luke. Got to actually do some travel with Jared, these are the owners of Hacea. I got to do some travel with Jared down to Honduras and get to know him really well. And also just like learn about his values, because for me, I know that I have the qualifications. I could go and work at a lot of different places. I could do a lot of different roles in coffee, and I have. So when I was looking for what company I wanted to be a part of, it was really important for me to drill down into what mattered. So there are roles that you can do in coffee where you're going to make really good money. And there are roles that you can do in coffee where you are going to, be a social warrior and do really good things for these different pieces. And those don't overlap very often. So,
I just assumed Hacea was paying you the most money.
Well, I'm just like,
and if they're not,
no, it's just, you have to really figure out what's important to you. And that's because there's nothing, there are no jobs where you get to have everything. And the other thing is, like, I think, maybe this is a hot take. I think most trading companies, coffee trading as a whole, the process of coffee being grown in these countries and then being brought into the US, that is in itself built on a lot of ugly stuff. And a lot of the companies who've been doing it for a long time have had a lot of part in a lot of that ugly stuff. And I think that, that's another thing that's really important, is thinking about like the company and like what you want to be a part of. And so for me, I hit Jared and Luke up about, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know I'm sure it's fine. Yeah.
I hit Jared and Luke up about coming over and being a part of their team, because what was really important for me was the way in which they conducted business, in particular, how they were interacting with producers at origin and the equity that they were bringing to the producers in the buying relationship. So that was really important to me. Producers, in the whole supply chain, there's one group in the supply chain that doesn't get to dictate their margin and that doesn't get to dictate any of the rules of the game, and that's the producer. And so for somebody to go in and, I think what Hacea does is they try to go in and change that and bring equity to the producer so that the producer is making decisions, and that we, instead of just being a buyer, we're also providing a lot of critical feedback to them about the US market and what the value of their coffee is, so that the value of their coffee is based on something that has a solid foundation instead of a fluctuating C market. Because to tell a farmer in Honduras today that their coffee isn't worth as much as it was a month ago because of something that happened in the sea market, like because of rain that happened in Brazil. Like Brazil got rain, so your coffee is worth less. Like that's in general, like what is happening. And somebody comes in and dictates that to the producer and says, this is what your coffee's worth based on the rain in Brazil and the bumper crop in Vietnam.
But it has nothing to do with the work they're doing.
Nothing to do with the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
And so what really drew me to Hacea is the commitment that Jared and Luke had to disrupting that and turning the role of the importer into a piece of the puzzle that is giving information and price discovery, helping with price discovery based on like actual tangible things, like the quality of your coffee, the how a roaster is going to use it, taking feedback from the roaster, bringing it into the producer. And then when the producer has that feedback and has that information, the producer is in control of setting the price of their coffee. And, so it's a totally different feedback loop where we're not it's not a power dynamic where we're the center of power. We are just this conduit of information for the producer and empowering them to make decisions.
On the other side of that, then, you're working with people who are buying the green coffee. I always try to learn something on every show or help people learn something. Coffee Smarter is what we call it. Yeah. Something we do with Roastar, who sponsors the show. What is it that you wish the people buying this green coffee from you knew, or what are the smarter roasters asking you when they come to you and say, what are you seeing in this coffee that makes it a value add? Why are we paying you more for this coffee? A lot of the reasons you just said, but also from that perspective, since you see both sides, what would you say?
I think that roasters that I'm seeing be really successful with selling their coffee that they're sourcing in this manner, because this is more expensive coffee, right? Like if we're going to take this wild sea market out of it and we're basing it off of what coffee actually costs to produce, then it's going to be more expensive coffee. And I think that roasters who are being really successful with this, which people who are being smarter about how they're making their buying decisions, I think they put a lot of emphasis into how they're going to communicate that value add to the customer, because a lot of information and a lot of the knowledge about the value add gets lost at that spot where like the roaster takes it in and they make the buying decision and they're like, yeah, this coffee is so great. It's got this cool story. It's got these sustainability features to it. I'm like really behind it. And then that's where it stops. And they don't put the same emphasis into communicating that and pulling that forward to the consumer so that the consumer has the same understanding of the value add that the roaster does. And with that, I'd also say when you're pulling that information forward and you're understanding what the value add is for the consumer and you're communicating that to them and you're getting their feedback about the value, it may be enlightening. You may learn that your consumer does not care as much about cup quality or unique flavors or cool processing methods. Maybe they're really engaged with the process that you use for buying the coffee, or how you invested your time and energy into the supply chain. I think roasters would be shocked if they really sat down and did like some tastings with the average consumer and with their average consumer to learn that the consumer palate is so different from the coffee buyer's palate. And when we put our value, when you're saying like the value add is in the cup score or in something, like this particular unique flavor, that does not mean that it translates to the consumer as a value add. I think, bringing this information forward so that it doesn't stop at the cupping table, which is where I think a lot of it stops. It stops at the cupping table. And when you bring it forward and you're connecting and also getting that feedback from consumers about why they're buying this coffee from you, like that's important information. And I think that helps you to make really key buying decisions. I also think that it insulates you from pushback you might get when you have to raise prices or make changes, because the consumers bought in to, you guys are bought in on the same thing. And if that costs more, the consumer's going to understand that that quality costs more. So, yeah.
Yeah, consumers associating with the mission or the morals, the values of a business, as opposed to just, this is the liquid that's in, the hot bean juice, or I think how you referred to it earlier with me off air. And I know that that's important for me. I think as a consumer, I am trusting the companies that I'm putting in the effort to, like, this is the company I'm supporting, either in my neighborhood or on a bigger scale. But I'm also trusting, I come to them in part, or settle on them, settle's the wrong word, but I choose them because I'm trusting that they're doing the work you're talking about, that you're doing at Hacea, right? I'm going, okay, I know that they do things in a way that matches my values. And so when they tell me, or when we get to a level of trust back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't feel guilty buying your product.
Yeah.
Which everything I do is about guilt. I grew up,
Catholic?
No, Lutheran Missouri Synod, but there's some overlap there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could keep talking about this stuff for hours. I feel like I could, if I just let you go, I'd have content for a year, and I would love to do that. Excuse me. But I also have a couple of things I want to make sure that we get to. Most importantly, any thoughts on resources that maybe people can look up? Are there things that you look at regularly to learn about the coffee industry generally, or to expand your skills? That's kind of an off-the-cuff question. I was just thinking as we were talking, I'm like, how do we get more of this information that you're taking in out to the world? Yeah,
I mean, so I think that, for a roaster, the top thing I would do would be to be sitting down and having conversations with your customers to learn why they're buying your coffee.
How can I hide in the back by the roaster?
I know. And let's see, things that I'm doing to gain knowledge and information, definitely networking. I use LinkedIn to network with other coffee professionals when I get questions about coffee, or, what's going on, something with the industry. I have a whole network of people that I can reach out to. So crowdsourcing information, I think, is really important. There are so many really, really incredible and super knowledgeable people in this industry who would love nothing more than to talk coffee with somebody. And they just don't get approached. So, reach out and network. When you find a piece of information that is really valuable to you, reach out to the person who shared that information and let them know that that was valuable and that it made an impact for you. I think that's really important. And then, I'm always watching the coffee market, watching the C market. Even though we don't base our prices on the C market as specialty, we can't ignore the fact that the C market is important, because if the C market jumps up and a producer sees that their neighbors are going to make all of this money from selling strip picked coffee cherry, that impacts the decisions it impacts the context that producer is operating in. So it's still really important to know what's going on in the C market. So I use Bar Chart as a resource for getting that information. And then I also like to follow kind of what's happening geopolitically to kind of know what's kind of on the horizon. You can see if you're trying to read the tea leaves about what's going to happen with coffee prices in the C market, you can look real broadly at what's happening with oil, what's happening with tariffs made a really big impact.
That's hour 2, just a full hour on tariffs.
But so kind of following what's happening geopolitically. I really love this podcast called Geopolitical Cousins. It's a unique take on on what's going on, but I do really enjoy listening to podcasts about like what's happening in the world. And then from there, you can extrapolate a lot about what it's going to be influencing and impacting coffee producing countries.
We've talked quite a bit about all of the different things that you've done and are doing now with Hacea. For people who might be watching or listening, who do you see as the customer or the person that's going to come to you and say, I want what you're selling?
Well, I mean, it's really anybody who is aligned with our buying philosophy, and with, they have to be able to see the value in our buying model where the equity is being put into the producer. So that's the kind of person that we want to work with. We're not the right fit for every roaster, and I'll be the first person to tell somebody like, hey, I don't know that we're going to be a good fit. So yeah, I mean, roasters who have that same buying philosophy. We also do a lot of work with, because we sell coffee online in smaller quantities, we do a lot of work with home and hobby roasters. So, that's also kind of a core demographic that we love to tap into. The people
sharing the Be More?
That
was you.
That was me. I have a soft spot in my heart for people who are, maybe roasting isn't their full-time gig, but, it's like they enjoy it, they love it. So I want them to be a part of our industry and a part of the discussions that we have.
Well, they're the ones who are going to be willing to go to the coffee shop and spend the money on like the good cup of coffee too.
And until they get to a point where they're roasted it. They think they're doing it themselves.
When you are out in the world networking, perhaps, and you stop into a coffie shop, what do you order?
Drip.
End of list.
End of list.
Okay.
I just so I'll order a drip. I always ask first because I don't like wild coffees. I like basic coffees. Like if you've got a Brazil on drip, oh my gosh, give it to me. So, but if they're doing like crazy, like an anaerobic Kenyan or something, I'm like, cool, maybe not for me. Like that's not really what I go for. But usually I get a drip. My other favorite drink, this is a drink that Jen Hurd and I love, and we call it a baby bear. And a baby bear is a macchiato-sized mocha.
Okay.
It's just a little baby bear. So I do really enjoy it.
So if I go order a baby bear around here, people know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. But like Jen and I both had that same order that we really enjoyed. And we decided we were going to call it a baby bear because it needed a name. And I've ordered a baby bear places. So if you have a menu, add the baby bear. It's adorable.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge. So I like to find fun, interesting drinks. One of the best coffee experiences that I've ever had in my life was up. I don't know if you know Maxwell Mooney, who is now over with Onyx. Okay. But he had a coffee shop called Narrative in Everett. And before he had Narrative, he had a pop-up. And a pop-up in Everett at like in front of the courthouse, like on the, and I drove up from Portland to go to his pop-up because he's one of my favorite coffee humans. And he asked me what I wanted, and I told him dealer's choice. So he asked me what my budget was, and I was like, $50. And
that's a bold question. Like when you're ordering up a coffee, what's your budget?
Yeah. He was like, how much do you want to spend on this? And I was like, $50. And he made the most incredible coffee experience for me. I wish I could go and like, so sometimes I'll go in like dealer's choice and see what the barista makes me, but usually it's just a drip. Usually that's all I go for.
What did we miss today? Or is there something I should have asked that I didn't, that we didn't get to, that you think is important?
I don't,
if anything.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that we really missed. I would love in my heart, I would love if women in the coffee industry hear this, and I just want you to know that you're you're seen. Like I see you every time I go into a coffee shop. I see you when I go to a roastery. I see the work that you're putting in. I'm watching. If you need anything, I'm here for you. If you are trying to advance your career, you can reach out to me. I want to see you be successful. I want nothing more than to see you thrive in this industry. I think that your perspective is important. I think the work that you're doing is important. So yeah, I mean, I think what's core to everything I do in coffee is like, I want to see women in this industry thrive. And anything I can do to help and support you to get there, reach out.
I think that's a great
guys
way.
too. Like if you're a guy and you want to thrive, I'm also here for that.
You want everyone to thrive, but you have a.
I want them to thrive, but I really want to see women in this industry thrive.
Emily, thank you so much for your time and for sharing. Thank you to Hacea for letting me steal her for an hour. And I'm looking forward to having a cup of coffee after this.
Yes, absolutely.
Me too. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please subscribe to our newsletter at coffeepeoplepodcast.com. Cheers.